The moment when Robin reveals she wants to die because she fears being abandoned in the world with the more than 170 nation empire pursuing her death to the point that they put a 79 million berry bounty on an 8-year-old girl. She's alone, no one wants her, and now that she's finally found a group where she feels love, her existence inevitably kills that love. Incomprehensible political power, capital power, and military power creates a wall of hopelessness. But her desire for death is a mask for her true desire, which she doesn't even allow herself to consider because it is impossible. While she wavers on that thought, the friends she will die for stand there ready to die with her. And when Luffy hears this, he shoots down the flag, declaring war on the world government. He's given her permission to say her true desire for the first time in her life.
Tell me you want to live! If I'm allowed to say my wish just this once, I want to live!
And fools are still proudly and sincerely saying with a straight face, One Piece isn't political. And this video shows my actual outrage at these clowns because it causes a problem. The dumbest 10% of people yap more than the other 90%. Normal, decently well-adjusted people rightly don't have the time or energy to engage with these clowns because they are not losers. This video breaks down how this is even possible. Why are they the way they are? And why this matters to serious One Piece fans. We've ended up in a situation where the most influential anime content creators have alleged white nationalist dog whistler, significantly white nationalist enough that Google demonetized his account, Disney severed ties with him. The stupid part about this is I don't even give a shit about PewDiePie. Honestly, catching strays here, but I started looking into him because people in the comments of my last video says that Trash Taste banned Hassan for being political, not on their podcast, but for covering left politics online.
Told Hassan as well, I was like, hey, most likely not going to have you on again.
Hassan Piker has come under a lot of flack from primarily conservative media for saying out loud that Israel is committing genocide. Trash Taste said, no, dog, we're not having you anymore. Bye-bye.
The show is not political.
So I was like, gross. The whole I'm not political thing is silly because being apolitical is supporting status quo, the de facto group that is in power. So I was like, who else has Trash Taste? Oh, they've had PewDiePie on a couple times. I remember him getting into some hot water a while ago where he said this.
What a fucking jeez, oh my god, what the fuck? What a fucking asshole.
Apparently he read a book at some point.
An Antidote to Chaos by Jordan.
Where he did this.
He paid 2 men to hold up an anti-Semitic sign.
PewDiePie caught a stray from just this research, and I was just like, I can't not include this, right? I mean, this is crazy. So Trash Taste has this guy on twice, a groyper who says the N-word. So Trash Taste is like, number one, One Piece is not political.
You told me One Piece is very political.
What aspect?
I feel like I watched a different... Man, I saw Funny Gunman.
Yeah.
Number two, a leftist who covers the genocide in Gaza. He's not allowed to come back on the podcast because it's too divisive.
I don't keep up with what's going on.
But Felix, PewDiePie, come right up, bro. How you doing? So are they apolitical? Do you call that apolitical? I don't know if I call that apolitical. That is the level of normalization of hateful loser ideologies online. Those people are allowed in the anime space, and One Piece is unfortunately not immune to these hateful little grubs as a result of their families, friends, and community rejecting them as they should. They have so much time on their hands, and their favorite thing to do online is to trigger the libs, and all the big One Piece discussion and analysis channels have completely given into these narcissistic yappers to the point that the One Piece YouTube content landscape is nearly devoid of any political discussion of One Piece. It is a void out there, and the voices that do speak are tiny compared to those molding their uninspired, shallow, oftentimes straight-up idiotic drivel into 3 to 4 heaps of stank a week each.
The Guzman on the internet is here to fill all of your holes.
I hear very few voices out there, so let's get it all out there together. I think it will be very healthy, so please enjoy. And while I have you, I'm only supported by viewers like you, so about 12 minutes into the video, I will briefly promote my $1 a month Patreon membership. If they put an iron circle around your neck, I will bite it away. Oh wow, that actually is not a Luffy quote, but it does fit the conviction that Luffy has. Luffy's conviction is, I'm not free until everyone is free. Now I'll get to the real author of that quote, but I need to share a fucked up little freaky weird thing that you learn after making One Piece videos and post them on the internet for a while. About 10% of the fans don't know how to read. There is a little weird group of One Piece fans who have managed to consume some portion of One Piece, and they jaunt around like one of those fucked up little mascots in Times Square pretending very poorly to believe in it. So when I connected One Piece and Gaza, a fuck ton of preschool brained vampires posted some very mean and critical One Piece comments. My son is 3 years old and has more sound, reasonable beliefs and criticism than these bootlicking losers. They just go, that makes me mad. You make the anime bad. I love anime. It's mine. Stop forcing YouTubers to be political. I did exploit their silence, cowardice, cynicism maybe, about making obvious political connections with a deeply political, existential, and humanist story and world. I did that, and you know what? It felt good that I found a way to bring attention to the people of Gaza using a story that touched my life and touched so many other people's lives. And I have terminally online people that have their butt glued to their chair from Cheeto dust that claim that I'm forcing creators to speak about Gaza, that I'm forcing them to think about politics when they just want to escape reality, which is fine. But the problem comes in where you click on my video, that's you making a choice, which I hope you know that. The flip side of that is that these people are acting in bad faith, the existential idea that there are people who act inauthentically to their own beliefs and understanding of society to adopt what they know to be false values and ultimately not coming to terms with their own innate freedom as sentient human beings. They're deluding themselves to avoid the reality of acknowledging that they themselves are a coward for not acting in the way that they know to be true. It's somehow that extends so far to being like, One Piece isn't political, man! And I know that the people commenting on my videos are not really probably southern rednecks in the United States. They are way more often weird MAGA Eurocucks who really want to LARP online as MAGA Americans for whatever weird fucked up reason.
I found this guy who is using his mental gymnastics to make parallels between One Piece and Gaza. One Piece is nothing specific.
Calling for censorship about politics in regards to any art is a critical element of fascist ideology. They don't care about the truth. They believe they know what truth is regardless of the evidence or reasoning because their truth is mythical. It transcends truth, so no other expressions are valid, especially if they go against the patriarchal class structure that they believe they benefit or once benefited from. They are losers with loser beliefs, so don't argue with them because they don't care about winning an argument. They don't care about One Piece. They see One Piece as pure aesthetics. All they see is the power fantasy with no actual heart and soul in the art. Arguing with fascist losers with loser ideologies serves to validate their side of the argument as having some place in reality even though they are born out of insecure, delusional hatred. Ignore, block, or leave it at fuck off. 10% of the people who clicked on my videos psychotically rattled away that I am morally blackmailing other content creators by pointing out their silence, which was their choice and continues to be their choice. They said I can't make One Piece videos that involve commentary of our real world because they watch One Piece content to escape from stress of real life. Wait, you think I'm not stressed? Yes, they want me to not speak out about literally starving children and genocide because it hurts their feelings and makes them uncomfortable. But you know what is ultimately causing a massive amount of my stress? The fact that there are children starving in Gaza every single day, 25, 30 Palestinians shot and killed while 200 are injured, trying to reach the food in these aid trucks. That stresses me the fuck out, and the fact that people aren't talking about it to capitulate to genocidal losers online is annoying. Shallow content creators that deprive you of something profound and enlightening in the story of One Piece, that they are so afraid of these gross, pathetic losers that cry and whine about One Piece just being a cartoon for kids. It's not political. You're hurting my feelings. Oppression probably the fundamental political exploration of One Piece. And you're like, One Piece isn't political, they're just cartoons, it's just a rubber guy and he's silly. They're capitulating to those people. They just soothe your existential anxiety with mild, measured amusement about a story you don't understand. Not every single thing in One Piece is political, but wow, there is a lot of politics in One Piece. And maybe if you got like a preschool brain, you're like, hey, politics is just voting in elections and wanting to take rights away from trans people. If you're that type of person, you're just brain dead. By analyzing every idea and their criticisms, I could legally diagnose them as illiterate. And I don't mean they don't know how to read a word or a restaurant menu, although I do suspect that they order chicken strips and fries even off the kids menu at every restaurant trip because they're too picky after mommy caved into their incessant begging because she just didn't want to deal with it anymore. If even one single person watched my video and learned about the tragedy in Gaza, then that can open them up to learning about the true nature of this world. The true identity of the celestial dragons are the peak of the kind of class hierarchy. They have all the military power, all the economic power. The biggest threat to their power becomes these people that break the societal norms, that set out to live differently, live outside of this box, and they are automatically labeled pirates. And like in the real world, in One Piece, they use labels to delete thought, delete critical thinking, because labels have the characteristics that people could just recognize a pattern and be like, okay, I'll just blanket put this on everybody else. Straw Hat Luffy, evil, mass murderer. Support me for $1 a month on Patreon. I've been releasing regular exclusive content, and all my revenue on Patreon for this month and the month of July goes towards mutual aid for Palestinians. I'd love your support. Oh shit, I still need to explain that quote from the opening of this video. Yeah, that's Toni Morrison from her novel Beloved, which is basically a story exploring systemic trauma and the spirits of people that come from enslaved people. Wait, I just forgot that about 10% of these viewers accidentally rubbed their Cheeto figures across the screen, landing them impossibly onto my One Piece video about Gaza. And now I have to explain what a book is? Now, books contain these things called words. And then if you put those words in a certain order, you get sentences, and then paragraphs, and then chapters. And if you read all of that, you can actually kind of osmosis some of their ideas and expressions into yourself, and then you could mix that around in your own being and come up with some new insight about yourself or reality and kind of be entertained at the same time. See, One Piece actually isn't a cartoon, it's a comic. It has pictures and words. You need to be able to think, why might the author show this to me? And is there any connection to my own humanity? And the better you get at thinking about this, the more you could actually infer, and you're closer to the full meaning and expression that the author intended or didn't intend to express. And One Piece is something I consider to be literature, meaning that it has practically infinite meaning to analyze in a way that makes my mind quake with the sheer unfathomable levels of creativity, intelligence, and compassion that it makes me feel ashamed to be of the same species as Eiichiro Oda. And these dipshits are like, it's just a cartoon, bro! So yes, they've literally never seen One Piece, and they've just felt the need to psychotically LARP as a One Piece fan to express their weird, gross, cynical, political opinion that One Piece isn't political because it's a cartoon for babies. I feel like Oda is a god, and that I'm a mere human. Then what are these people? I'm not suggesting that they're not human. I'm not. Come on. And I'm specifically saying that even if they were subhuman, then we shouldn't hurt them or anything. I don't consider a chimp to be human, but I'm not going to punch a chimp. That's fucked up. I just need to not respect them in any way.
Which is a very political anime, Connor.
It's okay. Well,
it is a very political
what?
anime.
You told me One Piece is very political.
What aspect?
I feel like I watched a different. I read a different. And I saw Funny Gunman.
Yeah.
I get all of my news from the BBC.
Look, I'm not trying to pick on Connor Dog voice actor. They banned Hassan from being a guest on their podcast. Not because of any of the political things he said on their podcast, because they made sure he didn't do that in their most recent episode with him. They banned him because right-wing fascists flooded their comment section of their Trash Taste podcast. I'm just connecting the dots of people's past actions having real political ramifications, because when you cynically inject edgy Nazi jokes into the brains of children, those former children become some of the audience that represents the pro-censorship Nazis that Trash Taste and people who make One Piece content saying what I feel like saying about the thing that I want to talk about and going, you can't do that. You're forcing people to talk about Gaza. You're anti-Semitic and Hamas, probably. You are a loser. They capitulate out of some form of self-preservation because their deepest and most controlling fear guides their decisions like a cornered rat. They fear the implied threat that they could lose their audience and become another worker, like the depressed, apathetic audience they've cultivated. An audience that watches them unconsciously, perhaps to provide satisfaction through safe, sloppy amusement that assuages that deep, existential, inescapable reality of their eventual death and annihilation. It's just a cold, hard fact that a significant portion of audiences consume content for the same reason that a baby sucks a pacifier. It gives them a little bit of comfort in a world that feels uncaring, unsympathetic, and harsh to them. Stop making these videos that make me think about reality! It's very upsetting. And I'm just sitting there like, brother, you just need to go to therapy or like read a book. You guys are those types of people that haven't read a book since middle school or high school, right? Now, look, I'm not really placing myself above you because I consume slop content. My subconscious is also fractured from the horrifying reality that I see in the world, like the genocide in Gaza. I find that horrifying, and sometimes I need a good old-fashioned tier list video about some video game I'm playing lately to relieve myself of a little bit of that anxiety. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We all exist within an oppressive system, but I do have a problem with the narcissistic, baby-brained losers that demand that other people capitulate to their own existential dread. Just watch what you want to watch, read what you want to read, but also try to reflect and think critically on stuff that is consumed. Is it valuable to you? Does this actually make you feel any better, or was it just a temporary satisfaction that floats away, just like my fat ass after eating a bite of a sugary ass donut? They claim that One Piece is not connected to the real life stuff happening. They claim that you can't talk about the genocide in Gaza because Oda didn't write Gaza on the page. You dumb motherfucker. Oda is not necessarily specifically going, this is just like Gaza. He's saying, this is just like genocides in our real world. And then we have one right in front of us and we go, damn, they look mighty similar. That way, the genocides in One Piece represent all the genocides in human history in a way, right? An oppressive power kills powerless people for no real tangible reason other than to refine and reinforce their own dominance in the system and structure of society. One Piece fans who avoid politics ostensibly believe that connecting One Piece to our real life struggles is not valuable. Claiming One Piece is not political is a fucking self-report that you're either a moron or a Nazi. It's a self-report that you don't fucking understand One Piece. It's a self-report that you don't know how to read. You literally might be able to read the words on the screen, but you cannot actually do that little tiny bit of digging to understand even the most minor implicit meanings behind the surface level. You cannot connect themes and symbols to each other to understand greater meanings of One Piece. You're just a fish flopping around in a puddle. You should be so embarrassed to post something so idiotic. Oh my god, he's aura farming, guys. My actual One Piece fandom only exists within trying to maintain the agenda. I'm taking this meme way too seriously, guys. These are things that are fine of themselves because One Piece is objectively hilarious, but you can't also just be giggling about all these silly things while also going like, you're not allowed to talk about politics because One Piece isn't political. That's a deeply narcissistic mindset. The distinct message of One Piece is appreciating people seeking liberation, destroying the chains of oppression, and following the dreams without trying to control people. Oh, a really funny thing about Trash Taste is they're like, we don't want to bring politics into this, dog. We're like apolitical, like we just stay clear of that.
We don't engage in politics publicly.
They think banning people who have political content outside of their podcast, the act of doing that is political. One of the co-hosts of the Trash Taste podcast, Joey, if you go back and look at his own Anime Man YouTube channel.
Your boy is just a little bit ticked off at the current news.
Dude's got videos making political arguments in favor of lolly hentai.
I'm a passionate advocate for cultured otaku taste, aka the hentai, and unfortunately resulted in the Australian government making what I would like to define a pretty horrible decision.
Which I think is weird. If you're like, we're apolitical, we don't talk about politics except for the one type of politics that we're happy to talk about is lolly hentai.
It all started when a certain group by the name of the United Nations, don't know if you've heard of them, proposed a new initiative titled Optional Protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Talking about starving children and genocide in Gaza, bad. People who make extremely edgy Nazi jokes, that's not political, but the genocide in Gaza, that is political and that's bad. Lolly hentai, good. Edgy Nazi jokes, fine. And genocide in Gaza with brown people, bad. That's what you're telling me, right?
Yeah, why would we bring someone political on?
And you might say, that's not what I believe. That's not, in my head, I feel totally differently. I'm pro-Palestinian.
I get all of my news from the BBC.
Well, fucking anybody could say anything, dumbass. You are what you do. You are what you say. So if you say pro-Nazi shit, what does that make you? If you say, we're not going to have this guy on here that talks about genocide in Gaza.
The show is not political.
We are happy to have somebody that makes edgy Nazi jokes to hundreds of millions of people. What does that mean about you? You certainly aren't pro-Palestine. What does it say about you that you care more about defending lolly hentai than talking about children starving in Gaza?
The hentai.
It just makes me so mad that people running around with this filthy, disgusting loser mindset run around claiming to be One Piece fans while also having a psychotic, terminally online obsession with silencing people who are talking about things that they don't like, things that don't fit their political views. And some of these people are doing it for ideological reasons. They are fascists, but some of them are doing it because they have an unhealthy obsession with the content creator on their screen, that they feel the need to come out and defend this person they watch on their screen from me, another person on their screen that they've only met recently, and they fit me into some box that they see in their head and thus see me as their enemy. I don't really care. I'm just saying that's how they clearly see me. But unless you are a personal friend of these content creators outside of any of their content, you don't know them. You don't know how they really feel. You like their content, so you assume they feel just like you, because why would they feel anything else? They are not necessarily pro-Palestine. My strongest opinion about anyone who claims One Piece is apolitical in any serious sense is not on the side of liberation. And maybe they could be one day, but right now they're asleep at the wheel, just trying to greedily get clout. Number needs to go up. I need my subscribers to go up. I need to just like sand down my personality and content to fit the lowest common denominator I possibly can. And remember this about One Piece. It is political. Luffy, the representation of liberation, of freedom from oppression, of everybody being able to eat all the food they need, people being able to pursue their dreams and not be denied that freedom from other people. Luffy's violence is largely symbolic. Like in Arlong Park, when he liberates Nami, he doesn't just fucking smash Arlong and walk away from it. He destroys the structure that Arlong has used to oppress people. It's symbolic. He destroys Arlong Park itself so that Arlong's victory is completely and utterly gone. His disgusting dream is gone. He doesn't necessarily care or want to hurt Arlong himself. He wants to free Nami. But the violence of the authoritarianism, the violence of the right is real. It's directed at people. It's designed to cause injuries. Iraq, Afghanistan, Gaza, South America, Vietnam. These are all intentional, directed forms of violence to oppress people. Violence from the right is directed at people, and violence from the left is directed at institutions and symbols, just like when Luffy says to Sniper King, shoot down that flag. There's no equivalence of people that burn flags and people who bomb hospitals with babies in it. Desiring that Palestinians have equal democratic rights to Israelis under the law is not violence. Forcibly starving children, shooting women, shooting babies in the head, labeling any criticisms as anti-Semitic or Hamas. That's violence. That's gross. That is what One Piece has told us has no place in society. People deserve liberation. People deserve to be able to chase their dreams. I bet you a lot of these people are the same life begins at conception jackoffs. You know these people are the same people that worry about the children, and they somehow, confoundedly, support bombing children. You'll hear people be like, oh, well, some of these people, they don't share our same values. And those are the worst fucking part about people out there, I swear. People's values, traditional values, American values, our values, the values of our business. It's just a mask for white middle class hatred and discrimination, a justification for hatred and greed. Why would I value a flag? Why would I value the words that you wrote down in your dumbass comment? It depends on what the words actually are. It depends what the flag actually represents. Here's what I think is wrong with some content creators who go out of their way, bend over backwards to avoid any political discussion in a story that is deeply political in nature. It is an insult to the art itself. It's neutering what One Piece is to assuage your guilt about hurting people's feelings. Or maybe, not saying it's true, but maybe deep down we don't actually know who these content creators are because they don't reveal any part of themselves because they constantly censor themselves. They might believe some fucked up shit, and the only way I could tell for sure is if they actually use their voice and say anything deeper and meaningful when their entire brand and content revolves around discussing and analyzing One Piece. Because analyzing One Piece while also neutering any political discussion and pretending like it doesn't fucking exist, that's toxic to the fan base. They've lost their beauty as an individual because they've surrendered for the sake of group thought, psychotically watching videos just to comment their hate onto it. I saw so many of these losers attacking my videos without clearly watching it or like trying to understand what I was saying, because they're just like, you shouldn't be trying to force my content creator to make political videos. I'm like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just explaining to you exactly on an existential philosophical lens that if somebody knows something to be true, if they know that there is a genocide happening in Gaza, if they know that there's starving children in Gaza, and you talk about One Piece for a living, you could connect those two things and say, damn, isn't that crazy that One Piece shows that the world oppresses people so severely that even today in 2025, children, babies, are not able to get the nutrients they need to live and thrive and dream and succeed one day. That's so political. Oh my God. Every right-wing nut job, especially the Eurocucks cosplaying as MAGA hats over here, they're freaking out right now. They're like, One Piece is just a cartoon. I live in a country that stole land from other people, brought people over as property, also known as chattel slaves, and they founded this country because they wanted to be free. That is the deep cognitive dissonance that still breaks the brains of weak, pathetic losers online today. They are narcissistic. They don't see anything past themselves. They're filled with hate, which means they're nothing. They have nothing inside of them. Nothing. Don't capitulate to losers with a loser ideology. This whole section of the fan base is absurd. If you watch the anime, they're currently on the Kuma's flashback, and every single episode is deeply political. A hardcore criticism of authoritarianism and violence to cling to power in a dying empire. And the pathetic grasping of holding on to that dying empire is so fucking important to them that they will just kill off anybody and label them as trash and garbage. Fascists are interested in things, but people seeking liberation are interested in people. Fascists defend property and property rights, while people seeking liberation fight for civil and human rights, for dreams. Now, I know I'm being a bit mean to these people, but I prefer to use a sledgehammer with my ideas. A lot of people who think about the world in the same way as me, they like to do it differently. They like to have a nice, pretty technical duel where they destroy them in the marketplace of ideas. But I want to use blunt, destructive, confrontational presentations for my ideas, because I know what the other side is actually doing with their ideas. It's not technical and gentle. It's violent. It's direct. It's hard. The slow and corrosive violence of poverty, the agony of untreated diseases, isolation, hunger, discrimination. These are not nice things. They are cruel and painful and only serve to cause more and more suffering. There's real violence that goes on every single day. It goes unheard. It doesn't appear in the news. Over and over, multiplied thousands of times over generations. Just a little FYI, because I did call out some content creators. You could say you are something all you want, but when the actions don't match the words, that simply means that you are either not the thing that you think you are, or you are simply a coward. And using that philosophical idea from Search, these One Piece content creators who make 100+ videos a year about One Piece, who analyze and discuss One Piece for their living, the fact that they steer away from politics at all costs means that they might be a coward or something else. That's how I feel, at least. I also kind of called out Murphy and O'Hara, the fox. That guy doesn't give a fuck. Teching. They all have not said anything. So yeah, fun times. If you just pretend the genocide's not happening, then it doesn't affect you, right? That's a good mindset, right? Let me crank out another One Piece video. I totally know what I'm talking about, and I totally understand One Piece, guys. Please, please don't unsubscribe to me. Please don't give me a thumbs down. Please, please. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.